Please, have a seat. Relax.
Okay.
Tell us about, because you have done it, and you've done it very well.
$15,000, all you need to open a legitimate ice cream store anywhere in the country. That's it.
And that's including the machine.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so what's the other 5,000 going to if the machine's 10?
Yeah.
Well, you're going to need a triple three-bay sink. You're going to need a hand sink, a mop sink. You'll need a stainless steel table. You'll need a chest freezer and a refrigerator, and you're in business.
So maybe 20,000 too.
No, 15, 13 actually.
That's with one of these 350.
That's correct. That's correct.
What kind of keywords do you use? Say you have multiple shops in your area. Does it have like key advertising words that you use?
I've been in business 7 years, and how much have I spent in advertising? Zero.
What's on your storefront? You have like homemade? You have
It says Mystic Ice Cream Cafe.
32 homemade flavors.
One of your
32 homemade flavors.
One of your best selling points is you. Jeff and I have...
Well, actually, your best selling point is the first person who walks through your door. That's your first salesperson. The second person who walks in is your next salesperson.
Yeah.
And if you can adhere to those few little things, you'll be wildly successful without... It's hard to advertise an ice cream store without cheapening yourself. You can advertise, $1 off. It's not going to bring anybody in for $1 off on an ice cream. Not going to bring anybody in. But if you have a guy, hey, grab your wife. I got this great place down the street. Location doesn't matter. It's insignificant. It has no bearing on your future. And I'm proof of that because you can't see out the front of my store. It's pitch black at night, and we're only open at night. We're open 20 hours a week. And I'm a millionaire.
What I was going to say is your name, yourself, is one of your biggest selling points because in my case, I'm third generation. In Jeff's case, he's the owner of the business. People love to deal with the owner. Rita's can't do that. Kilwin's can't do that. Baskin-Robbins can't do that. The fact that, whether it's in your name of the business or not, the fact that you're there and that there is an owner. When you go to a town, if the couple right there, if I come to visit you, you're going to say something tonight like, hey, Steve, we're going to take you out to our our Italian restaurant. For dinner. It's not their Italian restaurant.
Right.
It's the one that they go to, they frequent. Oh, and by the way, Steve, your blue blazer looks a little ratty. From the flight? Why don't you drop it off at my dry cleaner and tell him I sent you? He'll have it done in an hour for you. They don't own the dry cleaner. People take possession of your store. This is my ice cream parlor because this is where I come. And that is so important. Another thing is social media. See that picture over there? That I took with all the machines. Sammy just happened to come walking by and sat down. I mean, that's an amazing picture. It was just by chance. So Ken, our IT man, who
That's not a real dog in that. Come on, tell him.
That's real.
I'm kidding.
So all of a sudden, I hate Facebook. I'm sorry, but I cannot see the point of, okay, I'm going to leave this room and go make a ham sandwich, and I'm telling you about it. I know that's not what Facebook is, but yeah, you do. But I do know advertising when I see it. And we took that picture and we put it on Facebook and we said Emery Thompson ice cream machines, and then at the bottom we listed the different products it made. And the first week it got 7,000 hits. Why? Because it's a picture of a pretty dog. That's what they looked at. The second week, it got 42,000 hits. And out of 42,000 people, I got to figure there's one or two who have a friend who might want to go into the ice cream business. Oh, I saw this name, Emery Thompson. The point is, social media has changed absolutely everything. Like I was saying this morning, Jeff and I might talk about getting a new cell phone, but someone who is involved in social media is hitting 200 or 300 people. This is not to get political, but that's where fake news has come from, is you can spread a story in an hour worldwide. And you can use that to an advertising standpoint, too, for dirt cheap. Ken, come on.
I do use Facebook for the business.
Ken, what is that? This is Ken, our IT head from our IT department is in Texas. East Texas Technology Division of Emory Thompson. What do those Facebook ads cost us?
A couple $100 a month.
A month, yeah. And that's not a lot for advertising, but it's putting it, I would never spend that in a newspaper like people used to. And I agree with Jeff. $1 off a product is not going to get them in the door. But if you get a following on one of the social media and you announce on Thursday night what your flavor for the next week is, you get people buzzing. You get people talking about it.
I have, on Facebook, we have, you're better at this than I am, all the reviews about our place, right? Right, Rosie? Where's Rosie, right? All the reviews. And that's a great thing for people who they look up our ice cream store and they see 5 stars all the way down the line, and that's a good thing. If you'll do these 4 things, it's a lock. Number 1, make the best product you can. Best product. Forget what it costs you to have this better than this. Make the best product you can. Charge a fair price. Fair for you, fair for the customer. Treat everybody as like though they're your best friend. And the last thing to be successful, no plan B. As soon as you come up with a plan B, you're saying, well, if I fail. So those are the 4 things that I teach. And it's a guarantee. I mean, you make the best product you can, charge a fair price, treat everybody great, and no back down. No what ifs.
But you mentioned Rita's a lot, and they put ice cream in their ice. I don't know what that is.
They call it a gelati, and I'll tell you what, it's called a gelati, Geloti, nothing to do with gelato. And all that is a made-up name for a product that Jeff and I had growing up that was called a parfait. It's a fluted glass. I have some around here. Here it is. Here, just exactly what it is. If I was going to do it in your store, in a nice store, that's what you call a fluted glass. Growing up, we called that a parfait. And what they did is they put orange sherbet, now AKA cream ice, in it. Orange sherbet and then ice cream, and then orange sherbet and then ice cream, or Italian ice cream, Italian ice cream. That's a gelati, and everything. And that's a delicious product, and it's a fun thing to sell. You can get these in plastic if you want to. There's a lot of ways to do it. But what they do at Rita's and other people, Jeremiah's over in Orlando, I put in a business. He has a lot of my machines. They are buying a soft ice cream machine. Now, if you've never owned a soft ice cream machine, you're a lucky person, because a brand new soft ice cream machine made in America, Stolting, Electrofreeze, Taylor. There's a new company in Orlando that's wonderful. I think it's called Ariel. I'm close to the name. Arel, yeah, wonderful stuff. Good people. Those machines, by their nature, are going to break 4 times a year when they're brand new. It's not because the manufacturer doesn't make it right, it's because they're complicated. And you're asking a teenager to run it. And the teenager leaves for the summer, and you tell them, train the next teenager. Well, they train them 80%. And then the next one. By the time you get to Christmas, nobody has to run how to run the machine. And they're doing it just for the soft serve. You don't need to. If I had 2 cabinets right here, one with Italian ice and one with ice cream that I made this morning, vanilla ice cream, Oreo cookie ice cream, anything I want, scoop of ice cream, scoop of ice, scoop of ice cream, scoop of ice. What are they doing? Scoop of soft serve, scoop of ice, scoop of soft serve, scoop of ice. I just saved you $28,000 on a machine that's a nightmare. And the bad part about them, I haven't gotten to the worst part, they take an hour to clean. And you got to clean them probably a couple of times a week. They got so many little parts. If you close at 11 o'clock at night, do you want to stay till 12 cleaning your soft serve machine? What a mess. So with your batch freezer that makes ice cream, you just saw it, you can do the same parfait, gelati, call it whatever you like. You could even have just a little machine. But it's a good product. It sells well.
Well, you say it's a good product. You mean it's a good dessert?
It's a good dessert.
You think so?
Yeah, it's a parfait is fun.
Oh, that I'm talking about soft serve.
No, it's horrible.
Okay.
Soft serve. We built soft serve machines for a few years
garbage.
for only one client, the United States Navy, and I still can't figure out how my father pulled this off. We were on all the nuclear subs. You know, I thought they were supposed to run quiet. These things are not quiet. But they were what was called gravity fed, which means just like the batch freezer, the air was naturally incorporated. Then came along pumps. And the salesman would say, hey, you got this product, we can double its volume of using this cheap 4% soft ice cream mix, and your profits will go through the roof. Instead of making 40 cents on it, you're going to make 90 cents on it. And that was true, except people stopped coming to buy it because it was so crummy. So the world of soft serve, I'm glad I'm not in it. It's a tough market. Who else has a concern about their store opening up? Sir, you had a question in the back here.
No, what I was going to say, when you talk about the parfait, I know Dairy Queen used to make it with pineapple, strawberry, and fudge on the parfait.
Yeah, it almost sounds like a sundae in a different dish. Yes?
Talking about the hand washing sinks and all that stuff, health department type stuff. How does the health department look at ice cream like beforehand? I mean, you're are a dairy product. Are they concerned about that? And also, if you're serving hand dipping out of a cart, do you still have to have a hand washing sink when you're somewhere other than your store?
I'll turn the sanitation question over to Jeff because he's doing it every single day. Some states, a lot of states, do require some kind of running water. And there are carts that have that available. It gets pretty pricey, but yes, it's available. But Jeff, overall sanitation, how does the health department treat you?
Well, our store just changed. We were, for 6.5 years, we were classified as like a small business. I don't know, we were in the bottom of the sanitation guidelines. Then all of a sudden the guy came in about 2 months ago, a clipboard walked in, and he said, you've been changed. You're now the same as Olive Garden and the Four Seasons, and he said, you're a regular big place now. And the reason was my seating. I seat 150 people. And
wow.
And because we used to lie about it. Is this going out on the air or anything?
It's going into videos, yes. So go ahead.
We used to.
We'll put a mask over you.
We used to claim 15 seats, and that apparently is fine for being here. But we kept growing, and we kept expanding our store, and now we seat 148. So anyway, he came in, and everything changed. Whereas the other guys used to come in and check the temperature of my freezers basically and leave. Now he did quite a thorough examination, and I had to then go take a food manager's course. I always had to take a food handler's course, but now I had to take the food manager's course, which is way different. And whoa, that's a class. It's very difficult class. You must prepare for it. But it's stuff that doesn't really pertain to us, the lumens and the lights and the oil in your fat fryer, and the temperature of hamburger when it leaves your refrigerator as opposed to when it's sitting in there, how you cover it, all the stuff. Very little applies to us, but you got to do it anyway. So I had to take a food manager course, and then when he came to recertify me, he checked the temperature in my freezers. He checked the temperature in my refrigerator. He actually checked the temperature of milk that I have in the refrigerator that we use in our cappuccino machine. He actually went in there and checked the temperature of that. He made me date my containers. I never did that before because they're in and out so fast. But he said you have to have a date on each container, which is no big deal. We handwrite the flavors. When we make the ice cream, you did the lids yesterday, we just write RR, rum raisin, and then yesterday we put 66. So it's RR66, and we throw in the freezer. So now they're all dated. Other things, but nothing as major as that class I had to take. That gave me a lot of angst. I was nervous about it. I did pass. I got a 90 on it, but not without extensive study. The other class is easy, the food handler's course. Now, our state requires that if you're in the lower class of, not lower class, but in the lower category of establishment, a food handler has to be on premise at all time. If you go to the other one, then the food manager has to teach the employees how to become food handlers. And then they get certified. You become a certifier of other people, which is okay. You know, it's good that they all know that stuff. So that's it as far as sanitation. He checked our dumpster, he checked our trash cans, he checked anything you'd expect. Of course, they look all around for bugs, you know, infestation, as they call it. And he said the one word that I was very proud of when he left, he said, "Your place is spotless," which is great. And that's my biggest concern, is spotless. You can make crummy ice cream, you can make great ice cream, but if there's one on the floor, that's it, you know, you're done. So did that answer your question? I don't know if it did or not. I forget what your question was.
Somewhat. I mean, we used to do something different than ice cream, and the health department used to be one of my biggest problems. Food truck type industry. I mean, it's just, they seem to have rules, and I was just curious on where ice cream falls in that. Of course, it's not heat and serve, you're not cooking raw food, so, but you are handling ready-to-eat food, which is one of their big things. If you're handling ready-to-eat food, that's, yeah, they seem to be, you know, very, at least where I'm from, they're very intense.
Right, but we're never touching the food.
He just did the glove thing. No,
Yeah.
the gloves does not.
It does not
It
help.
does
Throw
not.
away
It actually
gloves.
says in the book, gloves is not a substitute for having a hand washing sink and using.
Right, we're not required to have gloves. We never touch
They
food.
don't want.
In this business, we never touch the food.
Yeah.
But he did, you know, tell us about the drains. Now, some people claim they need a grease trap, but technically you don't need a grease trap. And I would go to the city, wherever you are, and I would fight that, because you don't have grease. We don't cook anything. What I do is, after all day, and you know this, I run hot water in the sink. Just let it run. Water is so inexpensive, and it cleans everything. It keeps my drains cleaned. There we go again. And it keeps everything working good. I don't know how else to answer that.
Nate, you were going to say something about that?
Well, I just had a follow-up question. Are there any ingredients you won't use that you won't add?
Hamburger. I don't make hamburger.
But you will use fresh fruit. You will use, you know, you're using cocoa powder. I was just wondering if there's anything. I know that certain health departments are maybe more strict.
no.
Actually, I don't use fresh fruit.
Okay, so do you use frozen fruit?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. The reason I don't use fresh fruit is simply inconsistency in the fruit.
sure.
You know, you buy bananas one day. Well, bananas I will use, because you can hand pick as many as you need. But cherries, I won't use fresh cherries, because they might be sweet today, they might be tart tomorrow.
So would you use fresh bananas or no? You use frozen?
Yeah, I use fresh bananas.
Okay.
Sure.
And you need consistency in your business. You can't have people saying, "Oh, the mint chip was terrific in July, but you know, now it's December and it's not the same." Well, it should be, but so maybe that's not the best analogy. But if strawberries are in season in one particular month and you want to make it in January, the strawberries coming from Peru are not the same as the ones coming out of Florida.
That's why
in the fruit
Restaurant
season.
Depot, you might pay a little more. Fresh frozen is much more expensive, but there's consistency in your product. You buy those bags for $22, which is a little more than a batch in my machine, and they're always good. All throughout the year, you're getting cherries that are perfect.
Yeah.
So you want to try to stay away from stabilizers as much as you can.
Don't use them. I don't use any of them. I don't use, what's the other one? Stabilizers and what's the other
Emulsifiers.
one? Emulsifiers. I don't use those.
Well, they're in the mix.
Yeah, but not a lot. I mean,
Not
you
a
could
lot.
certainly add more.
Negligible.
Mango mix back there, you're saying. They're in there.
Well, if you use the mango mix, yes. Yeah. But if you're just shopping at the supermarket, you don't have that problem.
Right, so just use fresh and you don't have to worry about that.
Or fresh frozen. Yeah, I use all fresh frozen, meaning not in a can. Because, you know, people have gotten so much smarter. There are exceptions. Normally, I would say, if you have a mother walk into your store with a stroller and she sees bright red and bright green and bright yellow, she knows, you know, red dye 40, yellow 17, green 6, and I'm not feeding that to my baby. When we were growing up, our parents said, "Hey, listen, if it keeps you quiet, eat it." So things have changed. But there is an exception to that. I want to show you. This is kind of fun if I find it. And that is, there's a company called Green Mountain Flavors. And Green Mountain Flavors is, the president of the company is Stan Sitton, Sitton. And Stan is like the two of us and Dairy Free over there, easily accessible to answer questions. We're not Capijani. Green Mountain Flavors makes concentrated extracts and colors out of all natural products. Now, this is a story I repeat all the time, but here is a bottle of red beet concentrate. And Stan sends this to me, and I wrote him back. I said, Stan, this is back in the Bronx. I said, Stan, I'm in the South Bronx. Do you think I'm going to sell beet Italian ice? Come on, it isn't going to sell here. And he starts laughing. He says, no, Steve, this is how, if you want to make a bright red product that's going to attract children like Superman, that you can do it all naturally. Beets are the most, the reddest thing in nature. And he said, we take fresh beets and we distill it down and we pull out the color and the taste, and we end up with a concentrate that is just concentrated beet juice. And so now if I need something to be really red, because that's the nature of it, like Rainbow Italian Ice or Superman Italian Ice, I can use beet juice concentrate. And he's got them for almost every color under the sun. And again, back to, and I think it's probably true in some ice creams, certainly is in Italian ice. There are certain flavors that drive chefs crazy. Watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew. You take a honeydew melon and you squeeze it and all you've got is water. There's no there's no strength. They taste good when you eat them, but when you try to use it in an ice cream or an ice as a fresh fruit, there's not much there. So, especially in Italian ice, you can buy, say, a mango concentrate from Green Mountain, and it's going to be all natural, and you can still use the fresh mango, or the fresh cantaloupe or the fresh watermelon, but you're bolstering the flavor with an extract. Some flavors need a little extra kick when you make them. You can't possibly put enough flavor in. Strawberry is always strong. Mango's strong. So it's just another way to improve on your product if you need to. All natural. That's a big change over the years.
Just to throw this out there, we have several recipes that use Green Mountain flavors, including some sorbet recipes as well. So sorbet and dairy free, but I mean they're the best natural flavors for sure.
Yeah, and he's in Oswego, Illinois, so if you go looking for him in Vermont, because it's called Green Mountain Flavors, they're not there. But good company. And I list a lot of these at my website. There's also 264 what Jeff would call disasters, me making ice cream. But it gives you, it shows you how to do it. And I think as you've are seeing here today, just how easy it is. I once had a class like this up in Tarrytown, New York, and I said to the class, it's not brain surgery. And don't you know, the guy sitting in the front seat, he says, I'm a brain surgeon. And you're right, it's not brain surgery. I go, I'm never using that expression again.
It is simple.
Okay, alcohol. How many, the class we sell some alcohol in your ice cream, how many classifications are there in alcohol licensing?
45 in Florida. 45 different categories.
Is that relatively consistent throughout the country? Or?
I wouldn't know that. I just checked Florida.
They're all using alcohol in ice cream. Every state is different. The one that I would have expected to be the most strict, New York, is one of the most lenient. So there's no rhyme or reason. It's up to the state.
Is it a complicated process?
No, it's an application.
It's percentage. How much of the whole 5 gallons of ice cream you make, what percentage is alcohol?
Not to serve it, but to buy it.
Yeah, you just serve it to me and say.
The other good thing about Green Mountain is every time you call, a human answers the phone.
Yeah, just like here.
You answer the phone.
Yeah, that's true. I do. Well, I'll tell you what. We're going to feed you, and then we're going to do some more fun things. So we'll bring the food in.
This is great.
Yeah, this is nice. We get to sit here and not work.
Right.
Maybe we should do this all day. All right, I'll go get the food, and we'll be right back.
As you know, we do a lot of videos, and I run a class, a course, and I get emails every day asking questions about ice cream making and store ownership and all that. I'm going to leave the ownership and location and sales tax and insurance, leave all those questions here because he doesn't really care. What we'll talk about is ice cream questions, and I got a few here. One of them is, some of my ice creams are hard as a rock in the back, and the girls can't scoop them. What am I doing wrong? What can I do? It's a legitimate question, right?
Sure is. If you can't scoop it, you can't sell it.
Right. We keep our freezers in the back between -3, -5 or so, something like that. And we make the ice cream, take it out, put it in the back, put it in the freezers. When the girls are scooping at night, of course, we have freezers up front which are stocked with the same flavors, and those too are hard as a rock. So what to do? What to do? What to do? What the girls have discovered to do is that we open at 6 o'clock at night. So they get in at 5 to get everything ready, get the chairs down, all that stuff. And what they do is they take out the ice cream tubs that they know to be the hard ones, the rock hard ones, and they temper them on the cabinet for about a half hour. And then they put them back in when the people come in at 6 o'clock to buy ice cream. And that solves most of the problem. The reason they don't get harder quickly after they put them back in the freezer is because the traffic in my store anyway is so much so that the freezers are constantly opening and closing for them to get the ice cream out, and that raises the temperatures dramatically. So all through the night, they're fine. When they leave at 10 o'clock, they close the freezers, obviously, and so by the next morning, they're hard as a rock again. And it's hard to scoop. I can't even do it. You take a couple of flavors, and some are harder than others. They don't have to take the coconut out. They don't have to take my adult flavors out. They don't have to take, well, the ones that seem to give them a problem. Coffee seems to get hard as a rock. The Oreo seems to get hard.
Vanilla? Vanilla. You don't sell vanilla.
French vanilla. And that's not too bad. But they know what they are because they know. We make one called Frankenstein, which is a triple chocolate. They must take that out. So anyway, the girls know what to do, and they come in, they get the chairs down, they get things ready, and then they put the tubs on the top to temper, wait a half hour or so, some longer than others, but they know that. And then they put them back in, and the people are already coming in right on the button at 6 o'clock. So the freezers are opening and closing all night, and they're fine.
Rob, if we took your beautiful balanced mix with great ingredients in it and substituted the cane sugar for a whole lot of high fructose corn syrup, what would that do to our scooping? Would it make it easier to scoop?
It'd probably make it easier to scoop. You'd have to drop the temperature lower to freeze it as well.
Because the cheap high fructose corn syrup makes it easier to scoop.
Why would you use that?
You wouldn't, because it cheapens the product. So you wouldn't use. You don't want to mix.
Brain cell killer.
You don't want to mix its high fructose corn syrup. Wouldn't you say that your alcohol flavors, you said, and some of the higher sugar content flavors scoop easier? They scoop easier because of the higher sugar content. I've found that the more sugar or sweetener in a product, the easier it is to scoop.
The harder it is to freeze.
Harder is to freeze and easier to scoop. Same basic idea. So I have a little different take on it. Jeff is using cabinets that are wrapped all the way around in Freon line, so it's all evenly cold. So am I. I'm using a dipping cabinet for ice cream, but it's the same concept. If you've got this box, let me grab this. This is my dipping cabinet right here.
That's a magazine.
It's a pretend.
Okay.
You know, this is the land of make-believe, just like you make great ice cream.
Got it.
This is my dipping cabinet. It's all wrapped all the way around in cheap aluminum tubing, and that's your source of cold all the way around it. So if I put a tub here, it's getting hit by this one wall of cold. If I put a tub in the corner, it's getting cold here and here. So this cabinet may all be set at one temperature, but it's not all equal. The corners are colder than along the long line because there's more refrigeration hitting that one tub. So you take your hard to scoop flavors like coffee, vanilla, and chocolate, and you put them along this line, and you take your high sugar content or your high alcohol or your alcohol content flavors, which are running soft to begin with, and you put them in the four corners. And now everything will scoop very close to being the same. If I go to an ice cream parlor and I see the server struggling with an ice cream flavor, I know the owner doesn't know that about the dipping cabinet. It's not anything they're doing wrong other than they don't understand the logistics of the cabinet, that the four corners are colder. And if I go into an ice cream parlor and all the flavors are soft and I check the temperature and it's still at proper temperature, I know they're buying a really cheap ice cream mix with high fructose corn syrup in it, and I walk out because I don't want to eat that stuff. What's next?
You guys, you must have something.
I had a customer call last night, and he said, would you please talk to people about coming up with a recipe, and how do you do it? And I wrote him
We're going to do that. We're going to do that.
Okay. Well, I thought we'd just talk about it a little bit right now.
It's better to show him.
All right. Well, I'll tell him just in general terms, my method and your method.
Okay.
And I told him,
Mine is right. Mine is better.
I told him we would discuss the two methods, and I said, this is a private email. Please do not tell Jeff that he's right, because he is right. I take a recipe and I do it strictly by mathematics. I say that if a working recipe has this amount of sugar in it, and this amount of alcohol, and this amount of cookies, I'm taking into account all the different sugars, and then I've got to multiply it up to match the machine that I'm running. It's all mathematics. I get a lot of calls which I used to think, what is the matter with these people? But now I realize they do have a bona fide reason. If you've got a 24-quart recipe of mine, 6 gallons, and you want to translate it down to this, they're saying, how do I do it? Well, in many cases, you just keep dividing by the size of the machine. The 12-quart makes twice as much, or the 24 makes twice as much as the 12. So you would cut your recipe in half. If you're doing the CB350, it makes 1/4 as much, so you divide by 4. But it doesn't always work, and we'll find out this afternoon if it did work, because I spent a long time on the lemon ice cream, and Jeff would just look at me and say, what are you doing? It's taste. How does it taste? And I think the difference is I can afford to experiment and throw stuff away because I'm not running an ice cream parlor. I'm trying to come up with a good formula for this class. Jeff is making formulas that he wants to sell tonight, so he's got in his mind what's going to taste good. His general rule is too much is never enough, and he's correct. He's taken some of my formulas and added more to them, like the vanilla, and it's come out better. I used to use M&Ms. I would throw M&Ms in, and I would have a good M&M flavor. Jeff showed me, you take those M&Ms, you freeze them down solid so they don't turn to mush, and put them in the Ninja blender and turn them into a powder, and now all of a sudden, and a light goes off in your head. Wow, you're going to have more surface area of flavor if it's been ground up in a blender. My machine will grind up a lot of stuff and leave some proper size pieces. But there's just some flavors like the M&M that it's just such a better ice cream if you put it through the blender first.
Actually, all candies can be great ice creams. When you go into an ice cream parlor and ask for Snickers ice cream, really what you're getting is vanilla ice cream with a lot of pieces of Snickers in it. But in order to make true Snickers ice cream, cut the Snickers bars into little pieces, freeze them, put them in the Ninja, and make Snickers powder. You can't do this with a regular blender or a food processor, it won't work. But in this crazy machine, it works. And you come out with Snickers powder. And the powder will actually dissolve in the ice cream mix, and therefore people will say to you, is that vanilla or chocolate? And you say, no, it's Snickers ice cream. Because the ice cream, the cream has now turned to Snickers ice cream. And I've done it with, well, we're going to do it today with a new flavor that I came up with a few weeks ago, and it's selling great. Payday. Has anyone had Payday ice cream? Payday candy bars?
Yeah.
I love Payday candy bars, and I always wondered, how can I make Payday ice cream? Well, today we'll make Payday ice cream, and you'll see how it's done.
Sounds good.
Yeah, very good. So I got another question. What can I add to my ice cream that won't dissolve in the machine to give it some texture? And that's a pretty good question. And what I do is of course you can add chocolate chips, but everybody does that. I buy bags at Restaurant Depot of Nestle Crunch pieces. They're all chopped up Nestle Crunch. And they maintain their integrity in your ice cream in the machine. So you get, and nobody knows what they are, now they do, but it's a great alternative to chocolate chips because it's little pieces of Nestle Crunch, about the size of about half a marble. They don't know about marbles. What size is that? Like 2 chocolate chips together, right? Yeah. And they're Nestle Crunch pieces, which is milk chocolate, not dark like chocolate chips are, and it's got that Rice Krispies, but they don't know that. It's crunch. So that works great in ice cream, and now you're different from everyone else. The other thing I do is I buy bags of Heath Bar Crunch pieces, and those are already chopped up in the bag. They're 4-pound bags, I think. And you add those, Heath Bar Crunch is toffee and chocolate, and add those to an ice cream, and it's a great crunch that won't dissolve in the mix. So those 2 things, you can add many more things, but those 2 are great products that I use. Is my mic on?
No, you're on. Yes.
There's a glaze over this audience.
How about some questions from the audience?
Sure. So when you freeze a Milky Way and you grind it down, do you have to refreeze it? Or maybe Milky Way is not a good example. Something with caramel in it. When you grind it all down, if you leave it at room temperature, does the caramel start to melt and congeal?
No, it doesn't melt. It turns to powder if you use my method.
So you don't have to refreeze it, keep it in a freezer or a fridge.
No, as a matter of fact, what you need to do is because most of the candy bars have caramel, the question was, after you make the powder, do you refreeze that until you're ready to use it? And the answer is definitely, unequivocally, no. You must use it as soon as you make the powder. Otherwise, you've got a brick. Even in the time it takes from grinding it and making the powder, pouring it into a bucket, getting your things ready, the top crusts over because of the caramel. So what I do is I make it fresh. I grind it and pour it in a bucket, and I'm ready to use it. I mean, you can wait 5-10 minutes, but certainly not putting it back in the freezer. That wouldn't work.
Who else has a question? I know that as soon as we break for lunch, you're going to all rush up with questions. So this is a good place to ask them right now.
The biggest question I have that I get, though, by far, 10 to 1, is where can I get ice cream mix? Because people contact me from all over the world. They come and take my class, they see me using the ice cream mix, and they want to know where can I get it. And the first thing I tell them is to Google ice cream mix, your zip code. And what that'll do is usually give you dairies. A lot of dairies don't make ice cream mix, some do. The other thing I do is I shoot them over to Rob. And Rob has generously offered, his company will go up through Georgia, maybe, Alabama.
Yeah, our furthest reach right now is up to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. So you can get the best, believe me, it is the best quality ice cream mix all the way up into North Carolina. Now, if you're in other places, some from Pennsylvania here and some from Texas, Rob has, I don't know if it still pertains, but he's generously offered to help you find a source. Is that right?
to the best of my ability, but it's certainly
You're hedging.
some dairies up there they don't service. I mean, their minimums are much higher than ours are, and that of course it's out of my control.
Now, also what I tell people is that if you Google ice cream stores in your area, 50 miles, got to be 100 places selling ice cream. Maybe 10% of them make their own ice cream. So you know right away they're getting it from somewhere and they're not far from you. You have a few choices. You can go in there and spy, or you can go to a place that's at least 10 miles away, talk to the owner, and ask him if he'll order your stuff through him because you're too small to get it, and you'll pay him for it. You're certainly not a competitor of his because you're 10 miles away or whatever, 15 miles away. If he's a stand-up guy, he'll do it. If he's not, then you got to send a spy in and find out where he gets it from.
Another thing you can do is you can freeze mix. I do it here all the time. I get an order from Rob, and I'm not going to go through all of it, and so I just take it's 2 bags to a box. They're in very heavy boxes with handles. You can pick them up, and we have them right in that freezer. You can take a look at it, and I freeze the mix, and then when I need it, I took it out for this class. I took it out on Friday, 2 bags, put it into the refrigerator, and let it warm up, let it thaw all over the weekend. My refrigerator is pretty cold. It took that long, but that mix was delivered fresh out of the cow 24 hours earlier. It was in the cow, and then 24 hours later, Rob's company is delivering it. And so it was fresh then, and then when I freeze it, it preserves that freshness.
Now, on that note, also, I get my delivery of ice cream mix on Tuesday morning. And I, too, instructed the driver, he has a key and he puts everything away, to freeze it. We have 13 freezers, to freeze it. And then, according to our inventory board, when I see what has to be made, I would take out a box of, and believe me, this stuff freezes harder than concrete, and the girls would leave it in the sink in water, take it out of the box, of course, and leave those frozen bladders in the sink in water overnight. And 24 hours later, they would be defrosted enough, thawed for me to make ice cream. Well, I've been open 8 years, and it took me 7.5 years to figure out that that's not very productive. We're a high volume store. So what I did was I bought one of those double door coolers, the Coca-Cola type coolers, a nice double door one. They delivered it, and now the guy comes on Tuesday and puts 12, 14 boxes of mix right in the cooler, and they're ready to go anytime. And I just open the cooler door. I don't have to plan for how long it's going to take or what am I going to make tomorrow. I just open the door, take a box out, and it's ready to work.
Rob, what's the shelf life on ice cream mix once it's delivered to the store?
So it's 28 days from production date. Every single one of our boxes and every single one of our bags has the code date on it. So it's not left up to your interpretation or our word versus your word. And also when you freeze it, we typically, if we're shipping frozen, we'll put a 160-day code on it. We say you can push it to 6 months, but I would use it within 6 months. And it typically, I was mentioning to a gentleman in the back, I would thaw it just like you would a fine steak. I personally would not put it in water. I can't endorse that because I've heard of it breaking up before. Definitely don't put it under hot water.
What do you mean?
I would just the composition. It's not as smooth, and
I never had a problem.
Anyways, I don't know. I don't want to leave it up to the user. I'd much rather have you just stick it in the fridge and thaw it out for 2 to 3 days, just like you would a nice
No
fillet.
offense, but in 2-3 days, that's not going to thaw. That stuff is hard as a rock. And
okay.
Depends on the temperature of your freezer.
Yeah.
Refrigerator?
Your freezer. If you've got a 0-degree freezer, it's frozen at 0. If you've got a 20 below.
Well, okay.
But 28 days fresh is a long time. You should be able to go through your order in 28 days.
Yep. Andrea.
What is
So, I mean, our minimum.
Repeat the question. Go ahead.
So Andrea asked what our minimums are, and then what the other dairies' minimums are. So our business was founded on, my grandpa met the former chairman of McDonald's back in 1958. So we've been supplying McDonald's since then. However, he's also prided himself on the mom and pop's deliveries. I never intend to cut that out, at least for the foreseeable future. And our minimum it's 25 gallons or 5 cases. That's for the state of Florida. However, when we go outside of the state, it's most cost effective to ship 250 gallons or 50 cases, and that's a full pallet or full skid, however you want to dictate it. But if you're shipping 10 cases out of state, you're going to be paying more for the shipping than you will for the mix, which to me, I can't imagine you're going to make much of a profit on something like that.
You try to go local.
Yes, ma'am.
You try to go local.
So you'd be better off buying local where you are.
As local as possible, but there aren't many dairies out there that are still catering to the mom and pops. Many of them are more shifting towards, for instance, on minimum would be, I don't know, say somebody's looking for like 1,500 to 2,000 gallons a week. That's how much you would have to be buying. They deal in bulk. They're supplying all the major quick service restaurants around the nation. Some of these dairies are supplying them nationwide. We're just really in the state of Florida. And as far as our quick service restaurants go, in the state of Florida and in the Caribbean. But yeah, I'm not going to name any names, but they're out there. You'll run into them.
I've never had a problem finding a dairy anywhere in the 50 states, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, where I couldn't get fresh or fresh frozen dairy mix at a reasonable quantity. They're out there.
That's a great resource. You're a great resource for that.
Every time we hear of a dairy, we ask how the people like them, and then we put it on our list. And there's some faraway places where our machines are. At the very worst, there's 2 companies, Cisco and American Foods. These are the big trucks that you see. Cisco is CYSCO on the side of the truck. And they're the ones who are delivering fruits and vegetables and meat and other things to restaurants all over. The trucker might have 30 stops a day dropping off grapefruit or frozen this or that. And many of them will carry ice cream mix for you. And it is going to raise the price as opposed to having a dairy right down the street. But if you're in Anchorage, Alaska, you're used to paying more for foodstuffs than someone in Orlando, Florida. So it's a fact of life. The further away you are from the source, it's going to cost more, and you expect that. But not had any problems whatsoever, which is good.
How much is a box? 2 platters?
I'll discuss that off camera.
It varies, and it varies by the price at the time, because the dairy industry is one of the first industries that the government ever controlled. Just a quick history. You might have seen growing up somewhere an old tintype. Those of you who don't know what a tintype is, it came before 8-track players. An old tintype is a little video, and it shows this Model A Ford on a dirt road and 2 men. It's doing great.
Okay.
And they've got one of these 10-gallon pails. Good. One of these 10-gallon pails of ice cream, of milk in it. And they're dumping it on the side of the road next to the cornfield. And I had to ask my father what that meant. He said, well, back in the Great Depression, the price of milk was so low that the farmers could not even afford to bring it to New York City or Chicago or wherever. The transportation was going to cost them more than the cost of the milk. And so they just, and you can't tell Bessie, you can't be milked today. Bessie's not going to hear for it. She wants to be milked at 4:30. Otherwise, she's got her legs crossed and is really upset. So the government, it was the first time the government stepped in and said, we're going to do this nationwide. We're going to control the cost of milk. So dairy products have price supports built into them, where for the most part, a gallon of milk costs the same all across the country, except for maybe the cost of the taxes involved. Milk doesn't. Milk, if it varies, it's going to vary in San Francisco, just like New York, just like Miami. So their prices go up and down almost on a weekly basis. And then, in order to, keep a stable business, maybe they have to change them up or down, monthly or bi-monthly. I don't know his business. But for the most part, and that's the beauty of it. People say, well, how can I go into business and make ice cream and sell to restaurants when I'm competing with Haagen-Dazs? Well, Haagen-Dazs is paying, they're so big. Well, normally we would think economies of scale. You build one machine, I build 10,000. I can build them for less money because I built 10,000. But that's not true in the dairy industry. Breyers is paying almost the same amount of money for their dairy products as you are. So they don't have a competitive advantage there. So he's not hedging when Rob says I can't, we'll discuss the price off camera, because next week it's going to be something different. And it's price sensitive, meaning as fast as it might go up, it comes down just as fast. It's not like a lot of commodities we buy that once coffee goes up, it's up there forever.